What if you could kill anyone in the world? Just by writing their name. No weapons, no blood, no witnesses, just a notebook. And a god watching you write. Death Note is not an anime about killing. It is an experiment on power, justice, ego, and the human mind. And by the end of the story, you won't be asking who was right, you'll be asking what would I have done. Death Note was created by Sugumi Oba and illustrated by Takeshi Obata. First published in 2003, presenting a world almost identical to ours, except for one supernatural flaw. Shinigami gods of death exist and are bored. Ryuk. One such god intentionally drops a death note into the human world, not to judge humanity, but simply to entertain himself, establishing from the very beginning that this story is not about morality, but observation. Light Yagami is introduced as intelligent, disciplined, and emotionally detached, a top student who sees the world as rotten and unjust. When he discovers the death note, his initial disbelief quickly turns into experimentation, and then conviction, as he realizes he can shape the world according to his personal definition of justice, marking the moment where idealism begins its slow transformation into God complex. Light's first kills traumatize him, but instead of stopping, he rationalizes them, convincing himself that fear and guilt are signs of weakness. This part explains how Death Note accurately portrays the psychology of power, how humans don't become evil suddenly, but slowly justify immoral actions when they believe the end goal is righteous. As criminals across the world begin dying of heart attacks, society names the unseen executioner Kira, and public opinion fractures. Some worship him as a savior, others condemn him as a mass murderer, perfectly reflecting real-world debates about authoritarian justice, surveillance, and capital punishment. L is introduced not as a hero, but as a rival intellect, someone who values truth over morality. This section breaks down how L immediately narrows Kira's location using psychological traps, media manipulation, and logical deduction, turning Death Note into a chess match rather than a supernatural thriller. Despite possessing a godly weapon, Light struggles against L, proving the series' core message: power means nothing without intelligence. This part analyzes their cat-and-mouse dynamic, where every smile hides calculation, and every conversation is a battlefield. As Light sacrifices relationships, empathy, and even his own memories to stay ahead. The documentary explores how absolute power isolates its holder, turning Light from a reformer into a dictator who fears losing control more than doing wrong. L's death is not portrayed as a victory but as a warning. With no equal to challenge him, Light's justice deteriorates, revealing that opposition is essential for morality, and unchecked power inevitably corrupts its owner. Nier and Mello represent two halves of illogic and aggression. This section explains how their contrasting approaches slowly dismantle Light's illusion of perfection, proving that even gods make mistakes when arrogance replaces caution. In the end, Light is not defeated by fate or gods, but by human error. Supposed desperate and stripped of control, he dies not as a god, but as a frightened human completing Death Note's central thesis: no one has the right to decide who deserves to live. Death Note never tells you who was right, because the real experiment was never Light. It was you, watching and deciding when justice turned into tyranny.